Hello and welcome to the sixth part of my first fabric rose tutorial, where we are going to actually assemble the whole piece together. So I have got my rose here, the calyx and two branches with leaves. And before I attach the calyx, I'm going to cover the stem with this piece of denim that I have got. So what I'm doing is bringing the wires up, roughly folding them in the middle and twisting them together to sort of reinforce the stem of the rose. And then I'm going to cover them with this strip of paper, which is actually a strip of kitchen roll, to thicken up my stem a little bit, because you all know that roses have relatively thick stems, thick and woody, so to imitate that we'll need to make it a bit thicker before we cover it with fabric. So I'm simply wrapping it with this paper strip twice. And here is my rose with a nice neat stem. The next thing is to cover this stem with a piece of dark denim. So the denim is quite thick, and I won't be able to fold in the edge to prevent it from fraying, which I could have done if I had worked with thinner fabrics. To prevent the edge from fraying here, I'm going to back it up with thin silk again. So I'm applying a little bit of glue onto the wrong side of this strip of denim. This glue strip is about 1.5 to 2 centimeters wide, and then I'm just placing the lining silk on top of it and glue 2 layers of fabric together like this. I'm also using a double-sided tape here, and I'm placing it onto the other side of the strip of denim. If you haven't got it, you can just use the glue. It works equally well, but double-sided tape makes life slightly easier. So now the rose stem goes onto this double-sided tape. I'm bringing up the bottom edge of the fabric and cutting off edges to avoid any bulk, because as I've already said, denim is quite thick, so we don't need all this extra fabric here. But do make sure that the stem is sealed from beneath and nobody can see the paper or wire or anything. Now just start rolling the stem into this piece of denim to make sure it's sits around the stem well. I won't need the whole length of the whole width of this strip, so now I'm going to apply the glue to that area which I will need. And then again slowly roll the stem in. Try keeping your fabric pretty tight, so the coils are very tight to one another. I'm cutting off the excess fabric, which I'm not gonna require. it's a good idea to keep the seam straight. And now a little bit more glue onto the very edge of this strip to make sure that everything is glued securely. Press it with your fingers several times and check if everything looks neat. So the rose stem is now covered with fabric, and the calyx is going to go roughly like this. But if you had a look at a real rose, you might have noticed that there is a swelling just under right under the flower, which we are going to imitate. It's a future rose hip, which appears after the rose has finished flowering. And to imitate that, we are putting a little bit of cotton wool right under the flower. It shouldn't be a big swelling. It should sit well in the calyx. And you can use a little bit of glue if the cotton wool goes unruly and wants to stick everywhere. Now apply quite generously some glue onto this bottom of the calyx and a little bit onto the digits, like I'm doing here. The glue here is going to first obviously glue the calyx onto the rose, and second, it's also going to soften it up, because after we've shaped it, you have noticed it has gone quite hard. So when it softens up, it would be pliable and we would be able to shape it. It's a good idea to align the seam of the stem with the seam of the calyx so that they're both on one side. And also this big digit on the calyx, try to position it somewhere where you don't particularly like the view of. For example, here. It's going to cover it, and it's like a little trick that you can use. If something is not very neat, then you can put the calyx there and cover it up. So I'm simply placing the calyx onto this cotton swelling, and now I'm trying to tightly bring both edges, both sides together to make them meet with a bit of overlap. It might feel impossible at the beginning, but believe me, it will sit very snugly around that swelling and the rose. Try also not to get too much glue on your fingers, because then it will go onto the fabric and will make the work untidy. Press it with your fingers all around to make sure that it's in place. And now to enhance the swelling, we're going to put a wire around it, like I'm doing now. Pull two ends quite strongly, and then twist it around again. Twist the edges. Do it several times. Check the seams, the seam, that it hasn't gone apart and that it's covering the cotton wool underneath. And also you can apply a bit more glue on the base of these digits of the calyx, so they are glued to the base of the rose, and it will make it look nice and neat. The rose stem and the calyx are in place, and the last job is to attach the two branches of the leaves. So I'm just checking where about I would like to place them. Maybe you would like to use just one branch, or you would like to use fewer leaves. It's entirely up to you. This is just one of the ideas. So this is approximately how I see it. Now to be able to attach the branch, which I'm going to be doing with an awl, I'm cutting off the excess wires and the fabric, and I'm making this end the tip quite sharp, and then a little bit of glue here to seal it so that the silk fabric doesn't go undone. And I'm making quite a large hole using the awl in the rose stem, where then I'm going to stick this leaf branch like this. To make sure it stays there, I'm applying a little bit of glue onto the very tip. And then I'm sticking it back there. If there is a bit of glue showing, just take it away with your fingers. It's probably going to go into the stem for about 1.5 centimeter, which should be enough. Then the same goes for the second branch. It's going to be a slightly shorter one, as it just has got 3 leaves. And I'm putting it in the front of my corsage. Again, cutting off all the excess fabric and the wires. A little bit of glue to seal the silk strip. Check again where I would like to see it. And again, another hole. Just remember about health and safety when you are piercing the stem with an awl. And try, by all means, avoid any piercing of your fingers. Okay, so this is how they're looking, and don't forget to apply a bit more glue onto the tip of the second branch to securely stick it into the stem of the rose. Press it with your fingers and check if there is any excess glue. The rose has to dry now, and also when the calyx dries, you just cut the wire off with wire cutters. So here is denim rosebud corsage ready. What a nice job! Well done!